Okay, welcome. This is the second introductory shiur, or the introductory shiur to the second part of our look at the Rambam's view on Birchas Hamitzvos, and the brachah that we say on mitzvos. And we're going to be looking at how the brachah is constructed. This is the first halacha on Perek Aleph, you can see. Now, just so you know, if you look at one of the old editions of the Rambam, the regular standard version of the Mishnah Torah, these two halachos will actually be combined into one halacha. But it's very difficult to understand the Rambam if you read it all as one. It seems like gibberish almost. Very hard to follow what he's saying. If you break it up into two, it's much easier. So this is a time where it's really good that we're reading this halacha together slowly, so that we'll be able to see what the Rambam is saying. So the Rambam says as follows: Kol ha-brachos. Okay, now the Rambam is talking about all different types of brachos, not just brachos and mitzvah, saying all different brachos. So all brachos, kol brachos, excuse me. All brachos should start with a beracha to Hashem and end with a beracha to Hashem. Okay, so that's how all brachos should be constructed. And then the Rambam says, except chutz mi bracha achrona shel kriya shema, except for the last bracha of Shema. Okay, so the last bracha of Shema, we're talking about that doesn't have an opening bracha. Another exception is bracha smucha lechaverta. Bracha, like when you have in Shemona Esrei, one bracha after the other, or you see it in Sheva brachos at a wedding, so you also have one bracha after the other, so that doesn't have to be opened and closed. Ubracha haperos v'adomela, and brachos of net, like peros, like if a big bar creates, that only has a bracha to Hashem. In the beginning, it doesn't have one at the end. And Birchas Hamitzvos. And when it comes to Birchas Hamitzvos. Okay, so the question you have to ask here, two questions. What's the virtue in having a bracha that opens and closes with a bracha? Why does that make the bracha any better when it has an opening and closing? Why is that all brachos should be like that? And how are there so many exceptions to the rule of all bracha? I mean, it's like everything. It's like all brachos have an opening and closing except just about every single bracha. So how does that work? Okay, going on to halacha base here, the Rambam says, so there are, when it comes to brachos that are of shevach v'daya, that third category of brachos. So there are some that open with a baruch and but don't close with the baruch. Okay, and there's some that are the opposite. They open with the baruch, but they close with the baruch, but they don't open with the baruch. Ela ma'atek Birchas Hamitzvos, if you go on Birchas Sefer Torah, if you go on Ra Kippur Yisrael, and then there's also some Birchas Hamitzvos that are like this also, that either open up or only open up or only close, but not both, with a baruch. The most, all the rest of the Birchas Hamitzvos open with a baruch and do not end with a baruch. Okay. So the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara goes on and says, "Kol brachos kulam posech v'chosim b'hem mebarach." All this is the Rambam source. So this is the Gemara. You know what? Let's go back and just review some questions here. What's the idea behind a bracha opening with baruch but not closing with baruch? What's the idea behind a bracha not opening with baruch but closing with a baruch? And what about Birchas Hamitzvos? Because that's really our topic here. Has them rarely opening and closing with a baruch, with a bracha. Why are they constructed like that? Okay. The Rambam's source is here in Gemara in Psachim. It's also Gemara in Berachos and also Yerushalmi. The Gemara says like this: Kol brachos kulan poseach bebarach v'chosein behem bebarach. Right, the opening and close the baruch. Chutz Birchas Hamitzvos, except for Birchas Hamitzvos, uberchos haperos. Berachos smucha lechaverta, bracha achrona should be kriya shema, right? Except for berachos mitzvos, berachos of fruit, bracha brachos that are like in a series, like in Shemona Esrei. Bracha achrona should be kriya shema, the last bracha in kriya shema. Sheish behen poseach the baruch meino chosein. Some of these open up with baruch but don't close with baruch, and there are some that are chosein with baruch meino poseach with baruch. Okay, just as the Rambam had said. The Tosas Harash here in source number 4 says something interesting. It says, "Kol brachos kulan poseach meino baruch v'chosein baruch." Taima, why is this? That they have to open it and close the bracha. Okay, so it says, any of the mizmorim that David HaMelech wrote in Tehillim opened up with the word Ashrei and closed with the word Ashrei. Okay. Okay, and there are many mizmorim that open with Hallelujah and end with Hallelujah. Okay, the Gemara says as follows: Gemara kol parsha sha'isa chaviva al David. Any parsha that this is the Gemara now that the Rush was referencing that says that David HaMelech opened, with Ashrei and with Hallelujah and then closed with those two words as well. So the Gemara says, "Kol bracha shehaisa chaviva David." Any bracha, any parsha, like this is talking about a parak of Tehillim that David HaMelech found was cherished by David HaMelech. Pasach baba Ashrei v'sayim baba Ashrei. He opened it with Ashrei and closed with Ashrei. Pasach ba Ashrei d'chsev Ashrei ish. V'sayim ba Ashrei d'chsev Ashrei kol chosin bas. He's referring to the first parak in Tehillim. Okay, great. So Tosfos asks a question on this though. He says, "Kol parsha shehaisa chaviva David v'im tomar." Michael Parshios, right? So this is what do you mean to all the Parshios? It's only the first one. All the Parshios. There's only in all of the 150 prakim of Tehillim, there's only one that starts and closes with Ashrei, right? So what does he mean? The lav dafka pasach b'ashrei sam Ashrei. It doesn't mean that specifically it opens with Ashrei and closes with Ashrei, right? That's not the idea. Okay, so the idea is not that it opens and closes with the exact same word. That's not the virtue. The virtue is that it starts with the same idea that it ends with, or ends with the same idea that it starts with. That's where you see like something special happening. Okay, and that's all over, right? You have the Halukas, you have the Shir Mouth, you have so many different prakim of Tehillim that start and end with the same exact idea. And the Rashba goes ahead and says, as follows, the Rashba says, Pasach b'ashrei v'sayim b'ashrei, kasu v'tosos the la dafka ashrei. It's not just ashrei. El b'masha pasach hasein kumo maska b'haluka v'sayim b'haluka. Quotes Tosos. And the Rifa, by the way, says this exact same words here. Because what's this idea of starting and ending with the same idea? It's a greater praise of God. Okay, so mikan samchu chachamim berova brachos lasam chasam meim psi chasam. And this is where the chacham got the idea that they should open up a bracha with a berachah to Hashem and close the bracha with a berachah to Hashem, so that it's of the same idea starting and ending, which, as we see here, is a derech shevach yoter. This is a greater praise of God. Okay. The Rashbam explains, the Rashbam on that original Gemara Psachim that talks about opening and closing brachos with the word bracha. Sorry, let me just ask two more questions here. And one question is, what about starting and ending with the same idea is a greater praise of God? Why is that a greater praise of God if you open and close the brachos? Okay. And the last one is, what about starting and ending with the same idea is a greater praise of God? Right? Why is that a greater praise of God if you start and end? That was the exact question we just asked. Excuse me, I apologize. And what about a Birchas Hamitzvos? That's based on this thing. I apologize. I'm all over the place. Okay, so let's see the Rashbam. The Rashbam says Birchas Hamitzvos can go misatef b'tzitzis. So this is saying that Birchas Hamitzvos do not always start and end with a Baruch. They generally only start Baruch to Hashem and they don't end with Baruch to Hashem. So why is that? So says the Rashbam, like the Satef B'tzitzis and Antilas Lulav, both those brachos don't have endings, right, with Baruch to Hashem. Why? Because they don't have so many words. So you're not going to attach a Baruch to Hashem to a bracha that has like 6 words to it. So our question has to be, what about a Birchas Hamitzvos not having so many words makes it that it doesn't have to start and end with a bracha, right? We said that's a greater praise. So just because it has less words doesn't mean you need to make it a greater praise. How does that work? Okay, that is the end of the introductory shiur to this second part. Shalom.